Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a brand new product announcement video for these 1/6 scale 75mm M20 Recoilless rifle ammunition sets. The sets that you see here are a new addition to the EastCoastArmory.com product line and are available in two different versions. We have here the loaded shell and the spent shell casing. We'll be going over the features of these components and sets in this video. The ammunition sets that you see here are designed to work with the Dragon 1/6 scale M20 Recoilless rifle, which is the unit that we have right here next to the figure. The Dragon set itself was released approximately 10 to 12 years ago, back in 2006 and early 2007. These sets came out with a Marine Corps figure for, I believe, Okinawa, the Battle of Okinawa of 1945. Now, the recoilless rifle itself is a very nice piece, and in addition to being released in a pre-built version like you see here, the sets were also released as a unassembled kit version, which I believe is still somewhat easy to find on the secondhand market, namely that on eBay as well as other online e-tailers. Now, as for a brief history of the recoilless rifle itself, I'm not going to go over that information in this video. Simply put, that this video is really more or less intended for that of the ammunition sets as opposed to the gun itself. In addition to that, I strongly recommend checking out the Forgotten Weapons channel, in which the video host, Mr. Ian McCollum, goes over a real M20 75mm recoilless rifle, and he in that video does a phenomenal job in going over the technical information as well as the history behind the weapon, as well as all the other features that this weapon does bring to the table. Now, as for the model itself, the Dragon kit, like I said before, was developed a number of years ago. The model is exquisitely made in that it has all of its detailing present, it does have its optic, and the piece is also fully functional in that the tripod can pivot on the transverse, as well as the gun can also elevate on the Dragon M1917 tripod, which again is a very nice detail component. The unit is comprised of all plastic components, and the kit version, from what I can see here, should assemble fairly easily. Now, one area which the Dragon kit is a little bit of a letdown is that the breech block detailing is molded solid and does not operate or function or pivot open, nor can it be designed to do so. However, the biggest disappointment that the Dragon kit had to do with the ammunition that was supplied. The Dragon, both the unassembled kit as well as the pre-built version that we have here, was supplied with the round that we have here in my hand. The round is made from plastic and shape-wise is nicely done. However, where the round is a disappointment is with the perforations. The number one iconic feature found on the recoilless rifle ammo is the fact that the case needs to be perforated in order for the way the system works. On the Dragon kit here, rather than molding in the small little holes, they simply went ahead and added the holes as a decal on the surface. This is something that is less than ideal and was always a ding on this particular kit. Now, this is something I've always wanted to address and correct the moment I received my first recoilless rifle, which I bought parted out from the kit. This was the pre-built version that I have here. Unfortunately, due to the perforations on the case, something like this cannot be made in my usual mediums, which is that of casted resin. Rather than going with that route, I finally was able to develop these rounds in a medium which better represents the type of shell that would be found on this type of a weapon. And for that, the best medium at hand is that of 3D printing. All of the shells that we see here are 3D printed. This includes both the loaded and the spent casings. Here I have a sample loaded shell. And here I have a sample of a spent casing. Now, before we go any further with the video, let's go ahead and take a step back to when these components were first unboxed in order to get a good idea on how the 3D printings are supplied and are ready for painting from the packaging. And here are the shells before painting and are fresh from the printer. Now, if we notice, there are three types of shells. Two patterns are representing that of the empty shell casing, while the third represents that of a loaded round. Starting with the empty shells, we'll notice that there are two variations of the empty shells sitting here on the table. The shells themselves are identical in terms of the 3D model, but they are printed in two types of media. The first media is the version we have here in the center. This is known as standard. And this version here is printed in a HD type material. Now, like I said before, the detailing on the two are identical. They both feature their perforated case. And they both feature their center tube with the perforations in them as well. They both have primer detailing, which will be more present after the pieces are painted. The reason for the choice of material has to do with the cost per unit. The version in the standard def is slightly cheaper compared to the unit in the HD material. However, the grain is slightly more present on the standard material one compared to the finer detailing found, or the finer surface I should say, compared to its HD counterpart. To illustrate this further, here I have two sample units of these exact same shells, pre-painted and weathered. This unit here is the standard material, the white one. And this unit here is that of the HD counterpart. Now, the reason for the two types of materials are as follows. Like I said before, the standard material is a lot more affordable compared to the HD counterpart. The reason for this depends on what you're using the shells for in terms of an end user. If you are working within the confines of a tighter budget, the standard def one will definitely yield some good results. Also, the standard def one is really good in case you need to have mass volume compared to just one or two rounds of this material. This would come in play for like use on a diorama display, in which you would have the diorama base where you have your M20 recoilless rifle, and you would have a pile of empty shell casings lying around and about. For this type of application, the standard def would probably be your better bet due to the quality of the piece and also the affordability in terms of more mass volume. If you just want to have a single spent shell just for a shelf display to go accompany your Dragon M20 or to accompany that of a gunner or loader type figure, the HD one would probably be your better bet for that type of application. Now, as for the loaded shell, you notice that there is only one type of material that is present for this version. The reason for that is that the standard material just did not yield, in my opinion, the crisp detailing found on the warhead section of the round that is definitely more present and more appreciated on the HD counterpart. I printed, when I was first developing this piece here, a sample unit in the standard material. Here you can see the unit. This one here is one of the prototypes and is all printed in one integral piece. It's a solid printing and basically has the overall look and appearance of the round. The unit that's actually going to go into production is this following setup here. Now, exterior-wise, it is identical to the other unit, with the exception that while this one here is solid, this unit here is hollow, and the warhead is removable from the shell casing. The reason for this has to do with in terms of printability, but also it makes it for ease of painting as well, which I'll go over in a tutorial video on exactly how to paint these rounds. Now, if you'll look here on the shell, you'll see the bands that are around the bottom portion here. On the real round, this would engage the rifling found on the barrel section of the M20, and when the propellant discharges, the projectile would get forced down the barrel, engage the rifling, which would give it a twist, which of course gives the round better accuracy. can also see the segmented lines that differentiate the sections of the top portion here of the projectile. In comparison to that of the standard def one, the bands are just not present with this type of printing. And being solid, the holes are also slightly more on the rougher side compared to the versions here on the production unit. And here we have the pieces now fully painted. As you can see, I have the shells represented in two types of mediums. We have here brass case, and we also have here a steel cased option. The pieces are comprised of the exact same components. The only difference is that they are painted slightly different with that of the color for the casing. Now, shortly after the release of this video, I'm actually going to go ahead and make another video that's a tutorial and a step-by-step on how to actually paint and weather the components to the way you see them in this video. This would include both for the spent casings as well as the loaded units that we have here. Now, like I mentioned before in the unboxing, when I first developed the ammunition, I had the idea to make the piece a one solid 3D printing. Here we have the prototype, and the unit is decent in the quality of detailing. However, after painting this one, I decided there was ways to alter the design to make it better for the end user and more simpler to paint, as well as get to the completion point. Rather than making one complete solid unit, I went ahead and made it with the two-piece design that was showcased earlier. The warheads are not glued on, they're just kept in place with friction in order to get the idea on how the pieces are assembled. By making the piece hollow and with two pieces, this does two features. First, it makes the components easier to paint, as now you could separate the two, paint them with their two separate colors, and then just unite them once everything is fully dry and ready to go. Another benefit that this has to do with the realism of the part. When it comes time to the perforations, the printed version, which is solid, the perforations are there on the printing and need to be painted on. Now, one feature that the recoilless rifle ammo does have is that on the real recoilless rifle, because of the perforations on the way the shell actually works, to prevent the propellant from falling out of the shells, there is actually a paper sleeve on the inside. This paper sleeve contains all of the propellant, and then when the shell is ignited, when it's in the chamber of course, the propellant burns and the paper casing simply burns away and is expelled with that of the expelling gas when the round is fired. To replicate this on the solid shell, I went ahead and took white paint and had to rub it into the recesses and do a wipe off. The procedure is doable, like you see here, and has some somewhat pretty decent results. However, doing this procedure can be a little tiresome in having to get the paint into the recess, and then with the wipe off you may run into issues with the wiping and keeping the other parts of the case nice and clean. Also, working with paint with a window like that is not exactly something that you want to do on a regular basis. Rather than doing it with this route, by making the piece hollow, for the actual paper insert, I used a real paper insert. It's much more easily seen in this video on the steel case variant. You can see the white glimmering through the perforations, which again is very reminiscent to the real unit. Also, in addition to this, it also has the appearance of depth, which again is another trait on the real one. If you look at the perforations, it's definitely clear in person, but hopefully it comes through on the lens. But you can see that the perforations are through, and then there is a little gap, and the paper insert is there and present. It makes for a very realistic appearance, and definitely one that is much appreciated, specifically when seen in the flesh. This again was due to the design of having the piece hollow and in two pieces. Another benefit was that by making the piece in two pieces, the cost did not rise or any change was needed, and so the item can be offered on the catalog with the same exact price, but with again better detailing and again a more easy package to paint and assemble into a completed unit. When compared to the stock shell, you can see the difference in appearance between the fake holes and the actual holes with that of the real paper liner on the inside. Definitely makes for a great improvement for enhancing anyone's M20 recoilless rifle, either in a diorama or with the figure on display on anyone's display case shelf. By the time of this video posting, all 3 of these shells are currently listed and available on the EastCoastArmory.com website. The link is found in the video description listed below, as well as also going to be mentioned on the screen. As for the rounds, they again are going to be available in 3 different configurations. We have here the loaded variant, and then 2 options for the spent. The standard material and the high def material. And with that, that wraps up this new product announcement video for these 1/6 scale EastCoastArmory.com 3D printed M20 recoilless rifle ammunition sets. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook, where there are more photographs of these particular units that have been posted, along with the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been posted on the ECA channel in the past. In addition to that, don't forget to swing by EastCoastArmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detailed components. Thanks for watching.